right, boys, let's react to How to Buff the Trapper. Ooh. By Pally. Bro, this is another video from Pally, right? I do believe so. We reacted to his video about tunneling, which was very, very good. So I'm sure this is going to be probably even better, bro. It's about Trapper. Ex-Trapper main. Okay. Oh my god, dude. Dude, watching these two things and these two things alone, like let alone, are just a couple of the, like, I don't know, bro, like tens of reasons of why it was so bad to play Killer and, for that matter, Trapper back in the day, bro. Slow pickup, slow setting speeds, them being able to just sabotage your hooks, not your hooks, your hooks too, right? And
everyone. My
like
name is Pally,
taking out your hooks.
DVD nerd who's been a Trapper main since Trapper.
But they used to break your traps, bro.
Killer in Dead by Daylight. Today, I'm going to be talking about the killer that Dead by Daylight seemingly left behind. Of course, I'm talking about my main man, Evan McMillan himself.
Trapper.
I'm also going to talk about what behavior.
Shout out Trapper lovers, bro.
For a better killer, but on the flip side of that, I'm also going to talk about what they can't and should.
Oh, bro, please say makeshift wraps on base kit. Please say makeshift wraps on base kit.
Do. And while
at one point in this video, that is the number one thing I want to see on Trapper, bro.
Trapper should go. I want to talk about where he's been. I want to talk about the journey he's had.
Dude, he's been in the depths of hell, bro.
Old days of Trapper, because there's a lot and we'd be here all day. But there's just a few things I want to touch on just to show you that, yes, he's a much better killer than he used to be. The Trapper is, as you know, the poster boy of Dead by Daylight. He's the face of the game, and in addition to that, he was also the very first killer in the game. And
I know the line, been for 17 years, and I know him.
Even a time when the Trapper was a
better killer. Please, like it would happen if he said it.
Believe me?
Look, I am a firm believer in speaking things into existence, right? Like if I want a date with Selena Gomez one day, if I say it enough times to my girlfriend, it might just happen. Granted, it might just be in my dream that it happens, but hey, game's game.
Well, for those of you that aren't aware, there used to be something called infinites in Dead by Daylight. And back in the day, an infinite was classified as a very strong loop where, if ran correctly, which back then was not hard, the killer could quite literally
not do anything.
Catch up to you. There are still situations where, if ran skillfully against a 110 killer and a bit of shift teching, you can create infinites to this day, but not nearly as easy as you could before. Some examples of the old infinites.
And a lot of people, like nowadays, like I was saying this in a previous video. I think it was the one in which Puffalope was rating my Survivor. A lot of people today know the term shift tech, but a lot of people don't know how to utilize it in the middle of a chase or when to utilize it in the middle of the chase. And for that matter, no one ever really does. Okay, a lot of people use it, but like not a lot of people don't use it at the same time. So like this isn't as worrisome in today's DVD, I feel like.
Or when there was no door to walk through next to the window in Ironworks of Misery. Or if we go even further back, Tree on Coldwind was just 2 vaults, no pallet. And to make things even worse, not only was there no medium vault back then,
wouldn't
had nothing
block,
but fast
bro.
Vaults, pretty much. There was also no bloodlust or entity
wouldn't
so the
block.
could just vault and vault
forever, bro.
No downside.
I have PTSD of this.
Infinite loops, and the Trapper is the only one at the time who was capable of shutting them down. At least until survivors started sabotaging his traps. Yes, survivors used to be able to sabotage.
This is what I was talking about, bro. Dude. Saboteur and toolboxes were the absolute mecca of like Survivor gameplay in like 2016, 2017, 2018 era, right? And the same thing, like he was just saying with these traps, you would spawn in as Trapper, right? One, Trapper didn't have as many traps spawn in on the map as he does now. Two, people used to be able to use small game, right? Nowadays, small game doesn't exist. You have to use a map to see the traps or the Trapper's traps, which I'm not even 100% sure of. I think, right, with the rainbow map, you could see traps. I'm not sure. I actually might have to like test that or something. It's been a really long time. But small game was a perk that is like so forgotten about now that no one ever uses. But back then, you used to be able to see totems. You used to be able to see all of Trapper's traps. It had no like limit when it comes to the distance, right? You would spawn in and see everything, and then on top of that, you're able to see every hook with Sabo. Oh my god, bro, throat hurts. And then you were able to see every single totem on the map. No distance requirements. You just were able to see everything from like corner to corner of the map. It was so crazy. So people would spawn in and just immediately know if they're playing against a trapper, and then just go run and disarm all of his traps, sabotage them. When they're sabotaged, you can no longer pick them up as trapper. I don't really remember or recall if they even ever came back.
Like hooks, they never respawned. Once they were sabotaged,
they didn't.
Were just gone.
Yeah.
And if survivors sabotaged all of his traps,
cooked.
He was left without
just
a
M1.
power, and he was basically just man with machete for the rest of the
Trapper was bad, but now he's bad. But there are other killers to make him bad on top. Yeah.
His traps. He had to pick them up and replace them down just to reset them, which was unfortunate if you already had the maximum amount of traps in your inventory, which at the beginning was only one. This is a change that
you had to use trapper bags, and now they did away with trapper bags.
One of the worst things was how long it used to take to set a trap. Even if the animation was cool as hell, it took a long time. He had a lot of strengths, but also a lot of really broken weaknesses. Thankfully, most of those broken weaknesses have been completely removed, the keyword being most. Now, fast forward to present day, and if you look at pretty much anyone's tier list, the Trapper is
always at the bottom, bro.
Unless, of course, you're one of those edible-loving nerds who thinks he's above Huntress on a tier list, and, well, not everyone has a good opinion. Another thing you'll find people say a lot about Trapper is that he's technically...
You guys see that? You guys see what I just saw? This is a problem with Trapper in 2025, right?
Tier list.
That, what he just did right there.
Good opinion. Another thing
look at this.
You'll find people...
Putting a trap in a bush, having a bush next to a tile, a strong tile at that, right, is kind of rare in DBD nowadays, right? You have like areas of crows, maps that are just like full desert. You have like cold wind, right? Which a lot of times, like, yes, there's sometimes some crops and things like that, but like when it comes to like having a tile, there's like nothingness, you know, like there's nothing to block traps anymore. That's why, like I feel like back then playing Trapper, you could almost place a trap anywhere you wanted, right? Of course, you still wanted to place it like on windows and tiles and vaults and you know, things like that. But you were able to place them sometimes in the middle of just nowhere. And a lot of times you'd get traps because people just genuinely can't see and like they think it's safe. Nowadays, it's just openness, bro. Like there's nothing to cover your traps.
People say a lot about Trapper is that he's technically the most buffed killer in the game, meaning that no one has received as many buffs, either direct or indirect, as the Trapper.
But he needs them.
Which is technically true. Not only has Trapper benefited...
Bro's running honing stone and fastening tools. Love it.
He's also had a lot of buffs over time to his base kit. His trap setting speed is faster than it used to be.
Yep. Haste. Oh my god, dude.
He has haste after setting a trap.
Oh.
He can no longer sabotage his traps. And to top it off,
he
has one of the most solid and all-around great and balanced sets of add-ons out of any killer in the game. Overall...
Anyone else getting a wreck just hearing all the buffs to Trapper?
So the question is,
wow,
why is Trapper still
don't tell me to
so
stand
bad? Despite all of the direct and indirect buffs over the years that he's received, why is Trapper still at the bottom of people's tier lists? Well, the truth is, even though he's received all these buffs, there's just still so much holding him back. The single biggest thing holding him...
See, because like nowadays, right, they're adding so many new, like, dude, like what would be deemed back in 2017 as just like completely broken. It's like one of those things where as time goes on, right, their older killers struggle the absolute most because these killers, and I believe I said this before, a lot of these killers made sense in a time of Dead by Daylight where this killer seemed appropriate, balanced, and like he had actual use of his power in a lot of these matches. Nowadays, they're focused on like hybrid kind of like power killers that can like lift pallets. You could turn into a fucking wolf, bat, dog, all this stupid shit. You know what I mean? Like all this like extra like power stuff. And that's new DBD. And you try and play as an old character in new DBD and you struggle so much, dude. Like even like Race, the Pig struggles a lot. Like even Ghostface, and even though like he's not even like super like old, he struggles. Myers, Trapper, a lot, bro. Like a lot of these killers that were like from like 2018, 2019, like even like 2020, bro. Like a lot of these killers, they're just outdated, and they continue to release new killers, and then people complain about the new killers. So immediately they're fixated on fixing the new killers, and maybe killers that don't even really need a rework, or like reworks that like no one really asked for. You know what I mean? Like why the fuck are we getting a Skull Merchant rework? Let the character like die, bro. Like let him just poof into the ether. No one cares. Besides like the 0.001% of like Skull Merchant mains. Like
him back right now is
bro,
he's a setup
focus
killer,
on like
on the surface
Trapper, Raid, you know, start from the top,
killers,
work our way, you know?
Is the only
I feel like that makes sense.
That in addition to having to set up his power, he has to first walk around the map and collect his power.
Yep.
The issue with this is that it doesn't really matter how much generator slowdown you have. There's just not enough time in most.
Unless you have the Trapper sack, I believe, Trapper bag, something like that.
Even a
purple add-on.
Competent survive with friends, whether it's a 4-stack or just a 2-stack. But let's just say if one knows where your traps are, so do the rest of the people in their party.
And one's gonna go around and disarm every single trap and do a world tour like Taylor Swift and make sure you have no traps set at all times of the match. And now you're constantly having to like chase survivors with no trap set, and then you have to stop, set a trap, they make distance on you, and like this whole thing repeats and repeats and repeats. Like even if you're chasing someone at Shack, bro, they're gonna have a teammate calming outside like, hey, get this window trap, and they could just hold the trap, vault out, and be fine. Yet if you vault it, they let go, and then you get trapped. Like his power, I think Trapper might be one of the only killers in Dead by Daylight where his power can be used against him in like such a dramatic way, in like effective way. You know what I mean?
Two things alone mean that oftentimes you won't even be playing for traps, but rather using your traps for zoning. Which is why you see me running fastening tools so much. Because
dude, fastening tools is the best Trapper add-on, bro. I don't care.
Or even the green map.
Fastening tools and coffee grounds. Oh my god.
Trapper's traps are. No downside. Just tells you where
Chase Trapper.
Like his power is useless if a survivor brings a map. Isn't that just great?
Okay, so it is with the map, right?
To compensate for how limited his setup power is in terms of time, he doesn't have anything substantial in Chase to make up for it. The most you can do in Chase is either set up a trap in Chase, or
zone him away,
setting up a trap for zoning.
Yep.
Even the haste he gets after setting up the trap doesn't really do anything because all the survivor has to do is shift W to negate it completely. It's meaningless. And that brings me to his traps. They don't really mean
a lot of times the only times that you get like easy and quick downs with Trapper is when people will get hit and then or they drop the pallet, they feel safe, right? Because there's a pallet in between you. You trap the pallet, you get your haste, you wrap around, and for some reason they stick at the loop. I mean that just comes down to like them being like non-efficient loopers and like them not really knowing like what to do in the scenario. But like if you W key, like he just wasted so much time in that loop, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. And it's like you have to do that over and over and over.
Most of the time,
like,
survivors get out of them instantly.
Yeah.
They just disarm them very quickly with absolutely zero
even with fastening tools too.
For free. And that brings me to hands down one of the worst things and biggest things holding the Trapper back. Maps.
Imagine Venom and DBD as Killer and Eddie as Survivor.
Releases or updates,
wait, that's hard.
Places for traps there are. You often hear people saying Badham is one of the worst maps in the game, but us Trapper players, we're just happy to see grass in a map. Some good examples of awful Trapper
this is what I was talking about earlier.
Maps. Ormond Lake Mine and Dead Sands.
Yep. I was just thinking the same two maps too. Wait. Hey, me and this guy got fucking chem, bro. Wait. I'm contacting this guy. Nah, we need a collab or something.
Hurt to have a little bit of grass.
We need to make a Trapper tier list or something. I don't know, man. We need to get on this.
Most of the pallets be untrappable.
I like this guy.
A lot of the pallets now, like the gap in the pallet,
it's too big.
Trap.
They can just run past it.
Nothing. So you're left with just hoping the survivors are blind, and that doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to have to solely rely on your opponents being
dumb.
Lack of a better word. And circling back to maps and having grass on maps. Some of the maps have grass. There's tons of grass on some of the maps,
but they're so thin.
Any useful spot.
Yeah, I was just saying this earlier, right? I was just saying this exact same fucking thing. A lot of times, there like there's no bush next to a tile that is super strong. There's a bush like I don't know, bro, like in front of a trash can in the corner of the map or some fucking thing. And you're like, bro, cool. When is this going to be useful?
Is the Shattered Square map on Borgo. I always make the joke that it has grass but also has no grass at the same time. It's funny, but it's also very accurate. The point is, there's just so many maps that are just terrible for traps, and that number seems to grow every time a new map is either created or an old map is reworked. So the question remains, how can we make Trapper strong? How can we make him a formidable opponent against even skilled survivors? How can we make him not rely on the mistakes of his opponents?
Keep talking.
The answer is, you can't. Well, at least not really. Don't get me wrong. There are things you could do to help his quality of life and make him not so reliant on survivor mistakes. And we'll talk about those. But due to the nature of what his power is at its core, there's a limit to how strong he can be. Otherwise, he'll end up just being the most annoying and hated killer in the game. And we don't want to see Trapper end up on the old chopping block like another killer we know. Recently, Starver released a video called The Elephant in DBD's Room. And when people told me it was about Trapper, I was excited to see it. But then when I watched the video, I
don't know if I've seen that one.
Sad. In the video, Otz went over a lot of the issues Trapper has. A lot of them we've talked about here today. But when the topic came up of buffing the Trapper to make him feel play, he quoted what Behavior has said in the past about being happy with his pick rate and kill rate.
You play Trapper?
But I got the feeling
that on every map spawns grass,
to campaign for changes to our beloved Evan McMillan. He's just gotten tired of not being listened to. I recently had a brief conversation with Otz in DMs, and he pretty much confirmed that to me, but he did tell me he's happy to see that there's still people that are passionate about Trapper, and we also both mutually agreed that scene partner on Steve Harrington should be nerfed and banned. But the point is, even Odstarva has lost his passion for Trapper because
dude, and it's so sad too, because for like the longest time, bro, like the way I learn to play Trapper, or like at least like in the beginning, right? It's like totally different now, and like I feel like every person who's played Trapper previously has to like kind of just adapt with the times, right, and like evolve. But like when I was first starting out playing DBD, Otz was like the first person I watched play DBD, and he was a dude, like full blood Trapper main through and through. Loved Trapper, would like mainly play Trapper. I remember like learning so much, and like it's kind of like sad to see now, like he really doesn't even want to play that killer like at all.
Doesn't seem to care about. But here's the thing. While I don't think
to
just leave him as he is, I do understand why they don't want to make changes to him. He's
Huge.
Pretty effective at lower levels, but also easy for the lower level of both killer and survivor players to understand. On paper, if you ignore the macro and the micro, he's simple, and I think that's how Behavior likes him. Now, moving on from that, I've seen a lot of different people with a lot of different ideas for what they would do to Trapper, and I'll go through a few of them here and tell you why they aren't good
makeshift
ideas.
raps.
Some of the things are just straight up jokes, like just nerf bloody coil and nothing else. And some of them just go overboard to the point where I'll hear them out and I'll immediately say, congratulations, you've just created the Skull Merchant. The number one thing, believe it or not, that I hear from people the most is to make him get his traps from lockers. Now, I can see why you might think this is a good idea. I see
dumb.
Where you're coming from.
I don't know.
But
I don't agree.
On a lot of maps, this would effectively be a nerf. Think for a second of how spread out and scarce lockers on maps like Swamp and Canyon.
Some maps in this game, oh my god, dude. And I say it all the time, especially like when I play Huntress. And I can't give you a specific map. All I can say is a lot of times when I need hatchets, there are no lockers in my vicinity. I have to go out of my way to like a corner of the map or like a totally like obsolete area of the map, which gens are probably like completed or something like that. And like where as a killer, I have no place even being to go get more hatchets. This would be like the same thing except for Trapper, you know? And I don't really think that's a good idea.
You might have to catch a flight to Guadalajara just to see a locker on the way
there.
The
fucking lockers are all upstairs.
Work on Hawkins. It's just so frustrating. And on these maps, like I said, this would effectively be a nerf. This kind of downside works for Huntress and Trickster because they can do ranged projectile damage with their power. Trapper can't do that. Trapper would have to obtain his power, he'd have to get his traps out of lockers, then have to go place them down. So getting traps from lockers is, as good as it sounds, just a poorly thought out idea. The next thing I hear the most from people is just give him all of his traps at the start of the game. And if you go back a couple of years, you'd probably catch me saying the same thing. But the more I've thought about it, the more I realize this would overall be unhealthy. This would lower the skill floor of the Trapper to basically sub-basement level. Trap management is a huge part of mastering the Trapper, and this just removes that. Sure, in the hands of a newer player, this might not seem like a big deal, but in the hands of someone like me, or the best Trapper in the game, if you don't know him, Entity's left hand, it would actually be kind of broken. A change like
I think like something like that will be like absolutely broken because like you got to think about it, right? Like a lot of times, like let's just take for instance like a main building of a map, right, ladies and gentlemen. If I, as a trapper, am able to spawn in like the main building with all of my traps, I can basically cut out the entire world from that. And like you just have, dude, like the number one like problem with trappers, you spawn with only like your 2 traps, and then you have to go get a few traps, like and then come back to the area, you know, and you end up spending so much time, and by that time they finish all these gens. If I had all the traps, I would spend like half the time placing traps, and I'd be on survivors a lot more, which in a way like is a buff, but at the same time, later on, it's gonna be such like a problem for survivors, and they're not gonna be able to like get into a spot without getting trapped in there. And then it's gonna like kind of like in a way like almost like promote a little bit of like camping, and bro, like basement trapper is gonna be like giga like buffed. It's a buff to trapper, but it's not like the right like way to buff him, you know, like it kind of like promotes like I feel like a toxic playstyle, if you will, and like he said, it kind of just makes it not as skillful. Because you kind of like gotta like realize how to like utilize your traps on the fly.
It just removes any sort of skilled play from the trapper whatsoever, and it also is just a very boring play style. I don't know about you, but I don't even like playing that play style if I'm playing trapper. If
I never bring trapper back.
Hell, I wouldn't even give him an extra trap in his inventory. 2 traps is the perfect base kit amount. Any more than that without having to sacrifice an add-on could fundamentally create a skull merchant situation of sorts, where he can set up an impossible web that just prolongs the game to an unhealthy amount of time.
That's what I was just saying.
One of those changes that on paper sounds okay, but in practice isn't very well thought out. Lastly, another thing I hear a lot is give him Honing Stone as base kit. And for those that aren't aware, the Trapper's Honing Stone add-on is a very rare add-on that if a
that's crazy, bro.
Trap and escapes from it
that's so crazy.
They go into the dying state.
Wait, what?
The counter to it is that you have your teammate help
save
you
out
of the trap. But because a teammate may not always be nearby, you either wait in the trap and get caught by the trapper, or you just end up in the dying state. I love this add-on because it makes his traps meaningful, but as a base kit solution, it would be a wee bit too much. Those are just a few of the ideas thrown around, and again, like I said, they sound good on paper, but they have major drawbacks in practice. Now I'll talk about the changes I think should be made to the trapper.
Makeshift wraps. Makeshift wraps.
The sad truth is,
makeshift
he will
wraps.
likely always be a fairly weak killer. And my changes are
no matter
more
what.
or less designed in a way where they have the potential to make a world of difference for experienced players at the high end with little to no change at the low end, which is a balance method known as trickle-down balance, affecting high skill levels without negatively affecting low skill levels. And I think that's what behavior's after. Firstly, there's 3 add-ons I want to talk about: Trapper Gloves, Makeshift Wrap, and Lengthen Jaws. You can see them and their effects on screen. Pause if you need to. All 3 of these add-ons should be made base kit.
Oh, dude, like I don't know if I've ever wanted to kiss a man more in my life, bro. Wow. I mean, other than like that one time I saw Ryan Reynolds, but like that's besides the point, right? These are the perfect fucking thing. I've been saying for this entire video, I've been saying for years to make makeshift wraps a fucking actual thing, bro. Oh my god, the amount, like, and like it's not even too crazy, right? It's not crazy because in 2v8, these things are all in there, right? Okay, maybe not the deep wound status effect, but I do believe you get like it might be fastening tools that you have. I don't know. It's an overall faster setting speed when it comes to like placing traps in 2v8. But you also like you and your teammate have makeshift wraps. Makeshift wraps make it to where the trapper himself cannot get stuck in his own trap. If he walks through it, it gets deactivated. It gets disarmed. I feel like that's perfectly fine, right? In a perfect world, I would like it to where he doesn't deactivate his traps by walking through it, but I know that's like broken and things like that, and like wouldn't really make sense. That's just like trapper mentality. Like I would just love to see that, but I know it's not realistic. And this deep wound effect, I've never like initially thought about this, but I do think this would be like a good change. That way, like it'll like force survivors to go and mend every time they got trapped, at least, right? Because a lot of times, like I was saying earlier, or like he just said, you'll get trapped. Yes, you'll lose a health state, but at the same time, you might get out immediately, and the trapper himself can't do anything about it, right? It should be a free down for him. It should be a free hook, but he can't do it because a lot of times they get out instantly, right? It's like a chance thing. For those of you that don't know, it's not like it takes a certain amount of attempts. It's more of like it's like pig, right? When you get a trap on your head, everyone knows okay, you have a certain chance for that machine to have the key for your trap, right? It's like that with Trapper. You keep attempting, and it's kind of like a percentage, and every time you miss, the percentage goes higher, and it's a higher chance for you to escape that trap, just like it is with Pig. I think if they get trapped and if they get away, then they should at least be punished, right? Like, hey, I have to go mend now. I have to go mend before I heal, and they're out of the game for like 30, 40 seconds, or they have to go heal for like 30, 40 seconds. And at least you get something out of that trap. And not just like someone injured and then like they're gone by the time you get there.
Playing the Trapper. And the ability to walk over your traps, well, let's just say this is a downside Trapper has had that he shouldn't have anymore. It's an outdated part of his kit, and he doesn't need that kind of hindrance.
I agree, bro. Stop creaming.
He's a master of Trapper.
Bro, I just love Trapper, man.
As far as deep wounds is concerned, currently if a survivor steps in a trap and escapes immediately, they lose a health state. So if they're healthy, they walk away from it injured. But if they're already injured,
let them talk, bro.
In a trap, nothing happens.
Let them talk, bro. I was just saying the same thing.
Within the first 2 escape attempts. So now you're just left with a disarmed trap and nothing to show for it. The goal with applying the deep wounds from Lengthened Jaws to his base kit is to make his traps meaningful. To make it so you don't just walk away with nothing to show for it if you get someone trapped across the map. I'll talk about what I would change these add-ons to now that they've been made base kit after I get through with the rest of my proposed changes. Now, before we go any further, you will not see any nerfs here. I've seen a few people have their own takes on what they think should happen with the Trapper, and they all do the same compensate for buffs with nerfs nonsense. This has never been less necessary than it is with Trapper. Not every buff needs to be accompanied by a nerf to compensate, and no, before you say anything, Bloody Coil does not need to be nerfed. Not even a little bit. Moving on. Currently the Trapper...
Like Bloody Coil is like a little bit problematic, but at the same time, like when you think about it, like with Bloody Coil, dude, like when one person understands that you have Bloody Coil, they tend to just go around disarming all the traps. You know what I mean? Like you delegate one person, especially like you're playing in like a Swift, you delegate one person to just go around and get rid of all the traps. Easy as that. A lot of people don't like it because you lose a health state. Bro, we literally have Legion. We have Kaneki, Ghoul, right? We have like there's other killers that make you constantly have to mend and heal, and people complain about Bloody Coil Trapper. Like, how delusional are you, bro? One of the weakest killers in the game, he has one thing that makes you, I don't know, actually have to work for your escape, and you're crying? Hell no, bro.
Trapper has a
get that guy a binky.
5% haste effect for 5 seconds when setting or resetting a trap. On paper, this sounds okay, but in practice, a lot of this is
just say cry about it.
The survivor just shift Wing when the Trapper is stuck in the set or reset trap animation. I would bump this up to 10% haste for 7 seconds. This will create a more engaging chase game. Feel, like they're damned if they do, damned if they don't in chase. To go along with this, I would also change the way trap escapes work. I would make it take a flat 8 seconds with normal skill checks during the escape, similar to Doctor's Madness, just without the skill checks bouncing all over your screen.
No more randomized chance bullshit, bro.
On existing add-ons that already slow down trap escapes, but that's an easy fix. To go along with this, when a survivor is caught in a trap more than 32 meters away, the Trapper should gain 6% haste for 10 seconds. These two things would make your traps actually mean something and make them have an impact. But these changes would also
my nipples are hard too.
The Trapper for their trap instead of it just resulting in a trap being deactivated because the survivor was trapped across the map and escaped in 2 seconds. The final base kit change is the Trap Recall. To explain what this is, say you're playing Trapper and you have no traps. In this situation, what you would do is look across the map at any one of the trap auras that you can see, and you'll see the red flame icon over it. And at that point, you can instantly recall that trap to your inventory with the press of a button. And after you use this ability, it goes on cooldown for 15 seconds. And during the cooldown, your ability to pick up traps off the ground like normal is completely unaffected. Now you're probably thinking, this does nothing. Well, you'd be wrong. At higher levels, a change like this can make a world of difference, with almost no difference being made at lower levels. The goal with this is to reward high skill play, but not hurt lower skilled play. It does what it needs to do without removing the simplicity of Trapper that Behavior is such a huge fan of.
Fucking Dwight just walked over that trap, bro. Okay. I've never thought about that either. Initially thinking, I don't know how I feel about that, because recalling your traps and things like that, like he was saying, kind of feels like a very skull merchanty kind of thing. At the same time, I do see the amount of benefits this could have, right? Because there are countless times, countless games in which, because, okay, as a trapper, I feel like people think you're supposed to like put traps all over the map. Like, no, like personally, and I don't know, like it might be different for like every other like trapper player, right? Personally, I like to spawn in, realize my 3-gen, find a 3-gen, and then set traps, like kind of like weave a web of traps in that side of the map, that general area, and don't even focus at all on the other side of the map, right? Like stay in my. It's like the saying, right? Hometown advantage or like home advantage, some bullshit, right? Like you want to stay in that area. Now, every time you chase a survivor around those gens, the percentage chance of them stepping in a trap just skyrocketed, right? Because now every pallet and tile they have to run has a trap on it. Instead of you running across the map and having no trap, which I've had that happen a lot of times. And I'm like, dude, like, please just give me like one trap or something. Like it's just like one random place trap over here. So like in that instance, the trapper recall thing could be very good. And I feel like that's a good example for it being a very like new player kind of change. I feel like that benefit new players a lot because they don't know how to like manage traps a lot of ways or like how to like really like play like optimally as like a trapper. But I feel like for someone who's like experienced with trapper, you wouldn't really need this because you shouldn't be chasing survivors outside of your web, if that makes sense. And like that's just how I play. I don't know how other people play. That's just how I play. And I mean I don't win every time, and I always avert from my plan a lot of times, primarily because it's not the most fun way to play, right? It's the way to get your best chance of winning, right? It's a way to give yourself a highest percentage chance of winning, but it's also kind of boring. You know, it's like the comp kind of way to play, which the comp way to play DBD isn't always necessarily the funnest, right? Like a lot of times it's kind of boring. Yes, you win. Yes, you like 4K, you 3K, whatever. At the same time, you're going to be in the very long game, and it's one of those things where it's like, is it worth it in the end? For some people, they like winning all the time, that competitive nature, that ego chow. It's 100% worth. Other people, they're like, I kind of just want to like flow through games, you know, over and over, and sitting here for like 20 minutes in a game and locking survivors out of this area and protecting my 3-gen just doesn't really feel like fun.
And his trap should no longer be visible on survivor map items. I don't know why.
Oh my god. Yep.
Simple change to an
that's also mechanic. True.
Now let's circle back to those add-ons. You know, the ones we made base kit. Now here's what I'd do with each of them now that their existing effects would be base kit. We'll start with the Trapper Gloves. The new effect for Trapper Gloves will increase the speed of the trap pickup animation by 50%. This is a pretty self-explanatory change.
That's good.
One of those really nice feel-good add-ons, but you wouldn't see it everywhere. Now, moving on to the Makeshift Wrap. The new effect for that add-on would be when a trap is disarmed by the trapper walking over it, it rearms itself in 10 seconds. This is also pretty self-explanatory, and it also keeps it close to what it used to be, but this would allow for some really cool mind game potential. And I happen to think this would actually be a very popular add-on. Now,
yeah, that's exactly like man. I know it's an Eerie add-on, but the Eerie add-on that basically resets every single one of your traps, or not every single one of your traps, but it resets a random trap every 30 seconds. That's like that, but like so much better, bro. That would have to be like kicked up to like an Eerie or something, man.
And the new effect I would give to Lengthen Jaws is when a trap is disarmed within 10 meters of the trapper, the survivor who disarmed it is inflicted with a 5%
That's really good.
hinder for 7 seconds.
I like that. I like that.
Adds some risk to the Survive with Friends factor, where they like to disarm traps right next to you when you're in a chase with their teammate. It won't make a huge impact, but as I said, it adds risk. It would likely result in an injure for your trouble. Now, there is one add-on that I haven't mentioned yet.
That's basically...
I would change the Tar Bottle add-on to have an adaptive trap effect rather than just straight darkening of the traps.
Ooh.
Traps will loosely blend in with whatever environment they are on, whether that be a sand color on area clothes or an off-white color.
Can behavior do that though, guys?
Not to match the color of the ground perfectly, mind you, just to allow for adequate counterplay, but enough where if you aren't paying attention, you may not notice it, and it wouldn't just be an eyesore that you can see.
Yeah, do you guys think that behavior could actually do that, bro? Like the ink, right? The fucking tar bottle right now when you have that add-on, when you run the add-on, it makes your traps darker, right? And it made sense in old DBD because the maps in general, the overall game, everything was just dark. You couldn't see shit. So when you had darker traps, it was literally invisible. Nowadays, the game is a lot more brighter. Now they're implementing the gamma change that they just announced and everything. People are going to actually be able to see the ground for the first time in 10 years. That's cool. And it makes the trap more noticeable, I feel like.
Vision.
I don't know. It's kind of a nerf add-on.
But again, it seems pretty self-explanatory, and I think it would go a long way. The reason I would apply this effect to the tar bottle is because tar bottle is largely useless these days with how bright maps have gotten. Other than that, I wouldn't really do anything else.
Yep.
I know on paper it seems underwhelming, but the goal is trickle-down balance, where it's effective at the high end for people who have a good grasp on the macro and micro of the killer, but not so much at the lower end. At the high end, in the hands of a seasoned trapper player, these changes would
so
be
huge. So huge, bro.
Truthfully, we have to accept that the trapper will never be a super strong killer, but we can't deny that these changes would make him feel a lot better. When it comes down to it, my motivation for going this direction with my ideas for the trapper is because a lot of other people's ideas are either hilariously underwhelming from people who very evidently don't play trapper very often and don't understand the micro and macro play he has, or they just go overboard to the point where he'd end up being hated and likely nerfed into a state of oblivion where he's worse than he is now.
Yep, they're gonna want to. I feel like people want to try and turn trapper into like a skull merchant or something, man. I genuinely don't know what people think sometimes.
Some love. We know he does. He's the killer who's been in the fog the longest, and he needs help. And I can only hope and dream that someone from Behavior would see this video and maybe take some of my ideas to heart. It would mean the world to me if I thought I could make any difference at all for my boy Evan. But what do you guys think? Do you like my changes? Do you think
bro, say outro plus feet pics. Hold on a minute. Wait, hold on. No, wait.
Hello. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, you guys are awesome, and I will see you in the next one.
Oh, I was lied to. Fuck. Or did I miss it? Wait, hold on. Yeah, bro, I don't really know a lot about this Pally guy, but I will say this motherfucker absolutely knows what he's talking about when it comes to Dead by Daylight and when it comes to the Trapper in general, right? Man, a lot of times when I say things about Trapper, I feel like you guys just think I'm crazy for saying certain things. But no, bro, this guy knows what he's talking about, and that's why I absolutely love this motherfucker. Like I said, bro, I've never wanted to kiss a man more in my life, man. Wow, this guy has mind of a genius, bro. W fucking Pally.
He's yapping in the fog, never lost for words. Looping like a legend, though it's all a blur. Content so crisp, even when he's late. Imposter games, chaotic but great. Where's